Welcome to the webinar, Beyond the Algorithm, AI, Ethics, and the Peer Role. Through a series of questions, panelists will explore how we use AI without losing what makes peer support uniquely authentic. This webinar is being hosted by Peer Power. We are a national peer-run organization based right here in Illinois that develops peer leaders who positively impact the systems in which they live, work, and learn. Our team develops training and provides technical assistance to enhance the fidelity of peer services and further the integration of the peer support workforce. We partner with peers spanning multiple states and contract with community organizations, behavioral health providers, schools, county, state, and federal departments, and any entity that wants to learn more about peer support. We envision systemic change through the power of peer support. You can always find more information on Peer Power by visiting our website at www.peer-power.net. Peer Power is honored to host this conversation today, which is intended to create space for diverse perspectives, thoughtful dialogue, and shared learning. Panelists will share their own experiences and viewpoints, which may differ from one another and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Peer Power. And now we are going to review our learning goals. As I've mentioned before, this webinar creates a structured peer-led space for peer professionals to explore the emerging role of AI in peer support through a series of questions, dialogue, and collective wisdom. While AI offers opportunities to enhance efficiency, learning, and access to information, it also raises some really important questions about ethics, about authenticity in the peer role, boundaries, confidentiality, lived experience, and the unique value of human connection. So together, we are going to examine opportunities and concerns. We're going to reflect on how AI aligns and or conflicts with peer support values. And we're going to consider how to use technology in ways that protects role integrity, mutuality, and person-centered support. Rather than debating whether AI is good or bad, we are going to engage in thoughtful discussions about how peer support can remain grounded in lived experience, lived expertise, relationship, and recovery while navigating through some technology tools. So we have a Slido poll for you all to answer as participants this morning. And Tony's going to bring that poll up. The poll is going to ask, how often do you use AI tools to enhance the work you do?
Here it comes.
How often
I will also drop the link.
Uh-huh.
So you can scan the QR code or click this link right here.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, and if you can't
So
access the link,
often...
I was just going to say, if you can't access the link, just drop your comment in the chat, and then I will go ahead and I can drop it in for you. Sorry, go ahead, Trent.
Wow, thank you. So right now, daily is in the lead, right? Daily is in the lead. Thanks, Katie. I see that you say, I don't use AI. All right, thank you for sharing that. Looks like we have several other folks in the poll that say never, I do not use AI.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're looking at approximately 35% of people that are answering this poll in this webinar use AI on a daily basis. And that is exactly why we're having this conversation, right? Because AI has really become a prominent feature in all things, whether it's personal or professional informational or research oriented, AI is part of our world today. So, yeah, thank you, Tagata. You rarely use AI. Appreciate you sharing that. And Tracy says daily. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. So, thank you for answering that. Yeah. Okay, Caitlin, I like that. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, without clear guidance on when and when not to use AI, I feel like I'm cheating if I use it. So thank you for sharing that. All right. So we have a second poll that we would like to see your response for, and that is, does AI have a place in peer support? Wow.
I see Katie says
All
unsure
right.
in the chat.
Okay. That's fair. Thanks, Katie. Yeah, we have sort of a lot of middle ground folks right now. Maybe, like it might, maybe not. Some feel absolutely. They definitely think that AI has a place in peer support. Thank you, Anissa. So I see Anissa says that we have been instructed by our team leaders not to use AI for now. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, appreciate that. Good support, but not a replacement. Thanks, Sydney. Yeah, so we kind of see on the screen somewhere in the middle, right? Maybe AI has a place in peer support, maybe not. Maybe sometimes, maybe not all the time. Maybe it needs to be defined. So we're kind of landing as a group this morning somewhere in the middle of that. Mm-hmm. All right, thanks, Tony. You can go ahead and close that poll and drop the slides. Wonderful. All right. So we are going to move into our panel discussion now after just kind of getting your feedback there to kick us off with what your thoughts and opinions are on the use of AI. So our panelists will introduce themselves the first time that they answer a question. We have, how many panelists do we have? 7, 8, something like that. So people from diverse settings and experiences in the peer space. Every one of our panelists does identify as a peer, meaning they are a person with lived experience with either mental health and or substance use and have used those experiences to support someone else through their recovery process. So I'm going to start with opportunities. So, panelists, what possibilities do you see for AI to support peer professionals? What possibilities do you see for AI to support peer professionals? Andrea, and then
Hi,
we'll go to Mike.
Hi, hello. My name is Andrea Cook, and I sometimes work with Trenda at Pure Power, and I also am an instructor, a CRSS instructor at NIU. And I was one of the people that said I use it daily. And the ways that I have used AI is I use it kind of like Google on steroids. I use it to help craft texts because I can be wordy. So I want AI to help me kind of refine what my main objectives are for all my communications, texting, email, even conversations, possibly with a supervisor that I may have a lot of emotions around. And AI really helps me to hone in on the talking points. And so at a high level, I will just share that is I really rely on AI for that. I've gotten used to using it. It would be similar to not having Google and looking up words in the dictionary to learn how to spell them. So it's a quick, easy tool for me to use. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. So we'll go to Mike, and Jacob, you're on deck.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Tyson. I am a certified peer recovery specialist. I'm also the executive director of the National Peer Recovery Alliance, and I serve as the director of recovery support services for a small community-based organization in Southern Illinois called the Southern Illinois Resource and Advocacy Center. I use AI very frequently in almost everything that I do. In my role, especially as the executive director of the National Peer Recovery Alliance, I am tasked with running a large national organization with very little staff, meaning it's just me behind the curtain, pulling all the knobs and levers. AI helps me greatly with composing text, composing articles for social media, for publications. We have recently launched a quarterly newsletter, and AI is a big assistant in helping me write those articles. Now, I don't let AI write everything, but I utilize it as a tool very heavily in the creation of articles and emails and documentation. So it can be a very important tool for saving time, also for generating new ideas in these creative ventures. We operate though we don't like to acknowledge it, we often operate in silos, and AI can expose us to information, knowledge, and ideas outside of our silo to help expand our conversations greatly. Everything has to be taken with a grain of salt. We all know the challenges with AI, but when utilized properly, it can be a very good tool for productivity. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Mike. All right, Jacob, and then Caitlin, you're on deck for that question.
Hello, everyone. Jacob Bradshaw here. I am a CRSS person with lived experience, coming up on 9 years tomorrow in the field. I have worked on the warm line for most of that time, and then presently I'm an account executive with Carolina Behavioral Health, supporting national strategy for peer support across the organization. There are a lot of possibilities for AI to support peer professionals. I think the main thing is saving time, organizing information, preparing resources. Some organizations may use documentation tools that include AI that allow for documentation time to reduce down from 20 minutes down to 5 minutes. And also, I think one of the areas that we're seeing AI effectively rolled out is where scenario-based applications, where an AI tool can create video or audio responses based on peer support scenarios. So allowing just quicker training and, just having that feedback loop of what could be possible and growing professionally in peer support. Thank you.
Wow. Awesome. Thanks for that perspective, Jacob. Caitlin.
My name is Caitlin Isabel. I am the newest Illinois Warm Line Manager. I work with NAMI Chicago. And when it comes to AI, I think it's very important that we're intentional to not have AI form our ideas. That's something I really struggle with is I find if I say, put together a PowerPoint about this topic, something really vague, it kind of clouds what my ideas are versus what AI's ideas are. So I think it's really important to have a clear and confident concept of the information that you already have and the content. But I think AI could be really helpful with aiding with organizing that content, helping organize that data into a clear, understandable format, I guess I can say.
Wow. Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin.
Mm-hmm.
And looks like Dinah wants to jump into this conversation. So go right ahead, Dinah.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Dinah. I am a CRSS and also an LCSW, so I have a little bit of a different experience. identify as a peer, have been working in the field for about 15 years now. One of the things that I think is really interesting when we think about AI and we think about the people that we're working with is that we are working with humans who also have access to AI. So it's really important for us to take into account what is their interaction with AI like. You may have somebody who comes up to you who is obsessed with AI, only uses AI, things like that. How do you support them if you have an opposing viewpoint or things like that? So I'm actually of the viewpoint that we can't have a general overarching view on AI because it's so different from each person and each circumstance that we face. But I think it is important to note that part of learning how to use AI in a professional and responsible manner is also knowing how to interact with people who are also using AI in this day and age.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's really powerful, Dinah. Thank you for bringing that into the conversation. That it's not just about how we use AI in our work as peers, but it's also about how the people that we are supporting and collaborating with are also using AI, and how can we best support them as they also use AI. So let's shift a little here and into maybe some concerns about AI, right? So what aspects of peer support do you hope never get delegated to AI technology? Core, you are on that. Jump in.
Hi, everyone. My name is Corbin. I work at Thrive Counseling Center in Oak Park, Illinois, in the crisis department, and I also provide some case management. Something that I hope and am pretty sure will never be replaced by AI is just the actual relationship of peer support, right? So AI cannot, it doesn't have lived experience. Like it can't tell you I've been there before. It can't tell you I know what that feels like. It just simply can't do that. And so I am really confident that it wouldn't do that simply because it doesn't have the capability to. Um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Can't replace that relationship, that mutual lived experience relationship. Thanks, Corbin. Mike, and then Jeanette, you're on deck.
Yeah, Corbin mentioned the relationship dynamic that AI just cannot replace because it is not a human to interact with. But also, there's the mutuality aspect of peer support. AI has no power. AI cannot share power with anybody. So, therefore, mutuality becomes mediation instead, where you're actually mediating with an inanimate object rather than actually interacting with an individual. So I think that never replacing the human interaction aspect of peer support, never emulating that, where we see people using avatars and chatbots to imitate peer support in a virtual venue. I believe that is very dangerous, as well as fabricating lived experience. So AI cannot have its own lived experience, but we certainly want to make sure that it does not fabricate lived experience and therefore start imitating the authenticity that is represented in peer support. Thank you.
Ooh, wow. Powerful. Thanks, Mike. Wow. Jeanette, what you got?
Look, well, first, my name is Jeanette Davis. I do have the privilege to serve as a community engagement specialist for Memorial Behavioral Health here in Central Illinois. Um, uh, but I'm a hot mess on my best day. Happy to be here. This conversation and when sent out this out, I mean, I was so glad because to tell you the truth, I have been so ignorant to this out of fear. I have been afraid to even start to dabble. Um, Thinking that they don't want us to think our own thoughts and or all the things. However, since this was sent out, I began to dabble and I began to use and see kind of what it is and of course what I hope is exactly that, right? The relational component that we have to offer, I hope that holds strong. But what I will say, in my dabbling and kind of just playing around, um, I found it very helpful and useful and quick. But I was working on some things, and at the end of its help, it sent me it said, well, God bless you, and hope that things were, da 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 da, which was similar to the content, right, that I had in there, or I said something about my faith, and it ended that way. And I was like, whoa, because it legit felt like a friend. Can I say that out loud? It felt like
Mm.
it was someone whom just walked alongside. Now the content, the ideas, they were my thoughts. Like I put, kind of what I was looking for and used my words. And so when it formatted what it did, I was like, whoa, that's cool. That's really nice and quick. And it's what I wanted to say. And it's really what I could
Mm.
have if I spent 3 hours doing it. But it was the last part, y'all, that threw me off. That it mentioned that, well, God bless you. I hope that you're in whatever. And I was like, yeah. So I'm hoping that it will never crowd in to trick us to believe that that this thing, does have feelings, and we forget to reach out to those around us. I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense, absolutely. And I can relate to that because I was using ChatGPT the other day and it said something like, well, what I know about you, with what I know about you and how you XYZ. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, you know way too much about me. It was a little bit intrusive. Thanks, Jeanette. Jacob, I see your hand, and then we have a hand up from Katie. So you're on deck, Katie.
All right, so I'm going to stick with just the pure professional perspective of, because if we go into the individuals getting support from AI, then I think that's just a whole nother rabbit hole that we could go down that would have a lot more explanation connotations. But so for a pure professional utilizing AI, my biggest concern would be improper use of AI. Um, one, disclosing PHI, PII, and breaking HIPAA laws while utilizing services that, especially like general public services with AI, that is a full breach of HIPAA, and also that data is not controlled at that point. And so I think my biggest concern is around the data usage and the proper use of AI, and that we should never have uh, anybody else's personal identifiable information in that interaction with AI. Otherwise, we are really doing not only ourselves a disservice, but the people we serve a disservice.
Yeah, great points, Jacob. Thanks so much for sharing that. Katie.
Hi, good morning. I have two thoughts. Really, what are the implications of using AI if AI takes you away from being someone who's relatable to someone who is in a situation that might require a lot of trust? I know that when I'm speaking to someone who uses the same kind of vocabulary and uh, just puts their sentences together in a way that I would, then I feel like we've got something in common, which I think if you use something very standard, much shorter, much more precise, but we're not writing academic papers, we're relating with people. And the other thought
Mm.
I had was, when I was a preschool teacher, some of the other teachers were upset because I said, I just prefer not to use AI. myself. I have an English degree, so I feel sort of like, hey, I'm better. But like I like my own words, and I I want the
Mhm.
parent to know that what they're reading very much reflects what is happening in the classroom. It's not something that was created so that they would feel like the school has the most, I guess, professional teachers. I mean, preschool teachers aren't supposed to be the same as PhDs. So I didn't want to sound like a PhD. I wanted to say like, oh, she was feeling bubbly today, and instead of her mood was elevated. I just,
Mhm. Mm.
you know,
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Thank you so much because it's
Mhm.
almost taking your humanity, your uniqueness away. And I love that you're speaking to that aspect of it. Thanks so much for sharing, Katie. Dinah, please jump in, and Brandon, you're on deck.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch kind of to piggyback off of what Jacob was saying in terms of being responsible and how we're using AI. I think one of the things that I came across from time to time was folks not realizing what PHI actually is and stuff like that. It's very, so if I'm using AI, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, well, this person's diagnosis is this, whatever, and share that. But what about if you're working on a resume and you want to, spruce that up a little bit and you want to get it
Mm.
to sound better? Can entering their work history, is that, something that needs to be protected? Is that something? And that's where I say it needs to be a conversation with
Mm.
the individual itself and not something that we just do, because I think not everybody always pays attention to all of the different privacy, the elements that we have, then should not be
Mhm.
shared with AI just because we want them to or because it's going to make our lives easier. So I think for me, I would be concerned, just like Jacob said, concerned about the responsible use of AI
Mhm.
with folks.
Yeah, great points, Dinah. Thank you so much. So the question is, what aspects of peer support do you hope never get delegated to AI technology? And Brandon, you have your hand up.
Yes, hello, good morning, everybody. So I wanted to kind of like speak upon I think Dana had mentioned it prior as well, is the differences of those that we're serving and their use of AI. And I think knowing that AI is kind of this thing that we use, right? And it's something that I think so many people in our generation and in our history have never really experienced how much of a addiction these devices can actually become. And I think that being aware
Mm.
of how to put boundaries around the use of AI between our clients and clients that might be overly utilizing it for that kind of seeking of novelty is something that I think is really a little bit concerning, especially considering the nature of my own particular recovery story relative to mental health related to technology in that regard. Um, and I think that it's really important for us to just be aware of how we can
Mm.
be that safe space for them as opposed to ChatGPT or any of those other AI models, and how we can really make sure that we're fostering that, which I think that won't ever really go away. But as I believe Jeanette had mentioned previously about it kind of feeling very personable. And so I think it's up to us to really make sure that we're putting our personable part forward so that those
Mhm.
that go to AI for whatever it may be going at like to it for are feeling, that they can still come to us in that regard.
Yeah. Wow. Great points you're bringing into the conversation, especially about device dependence, right? Device dependence. I catch myself often in the morning reaching for my phone first thing upon waking. And so I can very much relate to that. So looks like Mark, you would like to chime in to this question, and then Andrea, you're on deck.
Thank you. Hey guys, my name is Mark. I am a CPRS and a CRSS. Been doing this about 6 years, and obviously AI is super new. It seems like again every day we're finding out some new tip or trick to utilize, which I think is a fantastic tool. It's subjective. It's an opinion, right? Based on do I like it or not. And I remind myself that that's what peer support is, right? So my opinion on AI Again, if it's peer driven, I respect their autonomy and encourage them to use what works for them. I think though it's really important though that I am informed even on the things I don't agree on so that I can help have those discussions with peers. Did you know that this can be a risk? Are you aware that having those open conversations? And I think to answer the question about what am I really fearful that AI will replace, and that's supervision and peer support. Again,
Mm.
that peer support has shown me it's really good at pretending like it's my supervisor. But what I've found, and Jacob kind of mentioned it so well, is it's a reflection of me. Right? It's actually just a mirror that's telling me what it thinks I want to hear, and that can be so dangerous in the roles that we're in mental
Mm.
health and substance use. And so I think it's fantastic. I heard Mike talk about, man, it's made my email game like, ooh, I sound smart, man. I love it. But when it comes to these other things about getting direction on ethics and boundaries and lived experience, that's where that human connection cannot be replaced. That supervisor knows my policies and procedures. AI doesn't necessarily know that. Again, respecting all the HIPAA compliance and really just keeping into those core competencies. So thanks for the opportunity.
Nice. Thanks so much for sharing that, Mark. That was a word that we hadn't yet heard, which was supervision. And it makes me think about ethics and boundaries, which we're going to shift to as soon as we hear from Andrea and Katie. So go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, the first thing that came to my mind, and I was holding back because I'm like, surely everyone's going to say this, so I'm going to let everyone else say it. But lived experience, that is what makes us unique
Mm-hmm.
to any and all of the human to human services out there, is that we have actual human lived experience. That is what
Mm-hmm.
we offer to others who are maybe feeling lonely, maybe need human to human connection and communication and support, and another human being who gets it. And AI is a robot that will tell you she gets it, but they have not been out on the streets like we have. So
Yep.
I think lived experience, that is our magic juice,
Yeah.
and that is what cannot be replaced.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 100%, Andrea. I love that you brought that part into the conversation, because one thing AI has never done, AI has never used drugs, right? AI has never experienced homelessness. AI has never been incarcerated. AI has never had a panic attack, right? AI has never been so depressed that it couldn't get off the couch for 5 days or take a shower. It has never experienced those things that many of us in this space have experienced. And that's our superpower. And AI does not have that superpower. Love that. Okay, I think Katie was going to chime in on that. And I see Mike's got his hand up as well.
Hi, I just really had a quick thought that there's a book called Clara and the Sun, Kazuo Ishiguro, and it's really beautiful. It won a lot of awards, and the kind of one of the questions at the end was not overtly stated, but you walk away asking, can AI or robots adapt with us as they change us? Can they start to recognize that the things we've programmed them to do start having an effect on us and they have to adapt as well? The real sadness of the story is that, well, I won't ruin the book for you. It's really beautiful. So, but it's a good question. What mutuality is there between us and the AI?
Mm-hmm. Nice. Katie, if you could drop the title and author of that book in the chat, we have a few folks asking for that. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just wanted to piggyback on the comments that were already made, talking about how AI has never experienced these things. And what people have to understand and not forget is that AI is completely programmed. It draws all of its thoughts. It's not really intelligence to begin with. It draws all of its data from what's been uploaded to it. Therefore, it doesn't have these wonderful lived experiences, and it's never experienced trauma. It does not understand outside of what
Mm-hmm.
other people have told it how trauma impacts the lives of all of us. And so, therefore, it can never replace what we know as human beings. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So looks like Jeanette and Caitlin, the question is, what aspects of peer support do you hope never get delegated to AI technology? Go ahead, Jeanette.
I just last minute, because I agree with what everyone had just said. This is my fear. Can it? We know that it's not had all those things, not had, but can it pretend to? Can it show itself as though it does and can relate? That's what scares the shit out of me. And I don't know. I'm showing you in my newness, like I said, transparent. Since we've got this email that we were doing this, that's when I just started getting into, because I do believe it's my responsibility to learn what it is. Because it's here, if I like it or not. But that's my fear. Can it pretend to? Can it show itself as though it does care, like it's
Mm-hmm.
been there? And how do we handle that part? I don't have the answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are good questions, really thought-provoking. Thanks so much, Jeanette. And Caitlin.
I really want to piggyback on what Jeanette said, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think the scariest aspect of AI is that if we tell it, oh, sound more human, or oh, sounds this way or that way, it can alarmingly successfully. And because of that, it's really easy to fall down a rabbit hole and to forget that this isn't another person. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really important that we stay grounded in that. I've heard a lot of different opinions. There is someone that I spoke to that said that they feel safer disclosing with AI because they know it's not a person that can judge, that it's just a robot, that if they even did say something judgmental, well, it's just a robot. To me, when I talk to AI, I take everything it says with a grain of salt. And if it were to compliment me, I'm like, well, it's not a human being. It's programmed to say what I want it to say. And so there's so many different ways to look at it, but I think that's the biggest risk, is falling down that rabbit hole and forgetting that it's not a human.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And for that reason, an act was actually passed in Illinois surrounding clinical boundaries of artificial intelligence. And it's called the Wellness and Oversight for Psychological Resources Act. And the law prohibits AI from acting as a standalone therapist or making independent clinical decisions. And that's what sparked me to think about, what does this look like in peer support? Why we're having this conversation? Because that governs clinical aspects of AI, and peer support is not clinical, right? Peer support is its own modality, its own evidence-based practice. So let's switch the conversation to because we're running out of time already. Like, I find this every time we open space for mutual dialogue, that the time goes by so quickly. And so I'm going to combine two questions, and feel free to respond to either of the questions. The first question is, what boundaries should peer workers maintain when using AI? And the second question is, what would values aligned use of AI look like? So when I think of values, I think of peer support values, the core values of peer support that the National Association of Peer Supporters published. Things like mutuality, equally shared power, transparency, person-centered, strengths-based, right? I'm thinking of values along those lines. So what boundaries should peer workers maintain when using AI, or what would values aligned use of AI look like? Any of our panelists want to jump in on that question? Mike.
So as we were having this conversation and thinking about these boundaries, what I got to thinking about is we're almost having a conversation about two different forms of or dynamics of AI. One being one being passive, which would be like using it for writing, documentation, and another for actually interacting with people, which would be more of an active use of AI. So I got to thinking about it, and what if we made these distinctions between operational AI, relational AI, and analytical AI, and then where should we establish boundaries around those types of approaches to using AI?
Did you get that from AI?
I am working with that too. I will be honest with you. The active and passive part was completely me, and then tooling around with AI, that's where it gave me the ideas for the operational, relational, and analytical. See?
Thank you. Thank you. So I do think it's
Love
really
you, Mike
important for
Tyson.
us to be absolutely. And I think it's important for us to be transparent about our use of AI. I think that's a boundary as peer support professionals that we absolutely must, right? Like, because that's one of our core values is transparency. And so being open and transparent, saying, yeah, I did plug that into AI, and these are some of the things that it suggested. It suggested, ABC or XYZ. And we're being transparent about that because the bulk of the work that we do at Peer Power is related to developing curriculum and training surrounding, related to peer support work from a wide breadth of topics. The use of AI in the development of our trainings has to be transparent, right? And so I think that is something that I would encourage anyone who is a peer support trainer to reveal. Like, if you've used AI in the course of developing a PowerPoint or developing curriculum, is being able to just be transparent that AI was used for this purpose, XYZ, and actually listing it out. Because our trainings are rooted in our lived expertise, right? Our lived expertise is different than our lived experience. Our lived experience are the things that we've experienced, that we've been through, but our lived expertise are the knowledge, the wisdom, the resources that we gained as a result of walking through those lived experiences. And if our trainings are not developed from that lived expertise, then they're being pulled from a different model that maybe doesn't necessarily support the evidence-based practices of peer support. So for us at Peer Power, we're looking at writing a policy that will be utilized from through all of our trainers and through the development of our curriculum. As we're working closely with NPRA to help promote and develop Peer University, there's a question even on the submission form about the use of AI. So when others are submitting their courses, they're being asked to also disclose that. So we're opening that conversation. We're opening that as a way to be transparent about the use of AI. All right, so the questions are, what boundaries should peer workers maintain when using AI, and what would values-aligned use of AI look like? We'll go to Jacob, and then Tony, you're on deck.
Hi, everyone. My personal ethics on AI is to use AI as a reviewing tool, not as a content creation tool. I think for me personally, that will allow me to maintain my own creative flow and not heavily rely on AI to just create ideas. And then also, I
Mm.
think informed consent is a really important boundary that we've already talked about here, making sure that if we are utilizing AI, that the people that we are using it with are aware. And yeah, I think we stick to our values on uh, being transparent, trauma informed, uh, culturally responsive, and then ultimately focused
Mm.
on self-determination. And I think, as long as we stay within those values and uh, utilize AI as a tool, not as something to overly rely on, I think we'll be better off in the field. Thank you.
Hmm. Yeah, great points. Thanks so much, Jacob. Tony.
So good. Such great discussion. I definitely think the consent piece, I think as a writer, as someone who really speaks from the heart and that lived experience cannot be replaced. Um, I specifically use AI for like when I'm struggling to like get a point across or I want to make sure I'm speaking clearly, but I will not allow it to change my words or my feelings. And I really struggle whenever it tries to give me commentary about why it's giving me an answer because of how I feel. I'm like, stop doing that. But I think there's a self-determination piece that gets taken away if we utilize it within the peer relationship because it's really about the person. It's not about what we think or what AI is going to say. And there's so many people that really do use it in a way that allows AI to comfort it and allows because they are comfortable
Mm.
sharing with an inanimate object that it doesn't have judgment and doesn't have uh, concern for you, right? There's no concern on the other side of the computer how you're really feeling. And so when it becomes utilized in a way that takes away the self-determination and it's inauthentic because it's just going to tell you what you
Mm.
want to hear. When you first start using it, it really doesn't know you. Then I remember 5 years ago, I used AI to ask a question about the Bible. And it said, I'm a computer. I don't know anything about the Bible. Now it speaks to me as if it is the Holy Spirit. And I'm like, no, sir, you are not. So I think the
Mm.
authenticity piece, the consent piece, if we're using AI and it's not made known to others, I'm so grateful that this came up as we were doing peer university because we know how we use AI to structure a sentence or rewrite a phrase that maybe doesn't sound right coming out of our mouth. But we also know there are people that create entire programs and
Mhm.
write
Yep.
books based on plugging a few things in AI. And as an author, that irritates me because I want real
Mhm.
life stuff out there. I don't want someone to pick up a book and it's really a computer that wrote it. So I
Mm.
think that's the importance of this
Mhm.
conversation. Those are my opinions. I don't like using it heavily. I do use it for images once in a while when I'm struggling, but again, I'm also worried about the data centers and all those things. So I think the values aligned part of it is probably one of the most important things is that it's aligned with the values of peer support.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, so I'm hearing definitely things related to authenticity and transparency. I'm hearing things related to self determination in peer support. And those are very important values that we embrace and embody in the work that we do. Any other thoughts on values aligned use of AI? Katie, thanks for jumping in.
Sure. I I'm not sure if this is, completely what we're talking about, but did you ever meet someone on a dating app who's really great with their answers and then you meet them in real life and how they speak is completely removed from what they showed in their tech use. It's very confusing and it's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing because how do you, it was embarrassing for me. I don't know if it's universally embarrassing, but I'm just going to throw that out there.
Mm. Yeah, I could definitely see that happening in peer support. If our communications are done through chat or through a phone where someone cannot see us and we're structuring our answers to their questions through the use of AI, but then we sit down to them face to face, and as a peer support worker, we sound vastly different. That is definitely that's definitely a problem for sure. So I had thought of something and then it eluded me as I was listening to Katie. I completely forgot what my response was going to be to values aligned use of AI in peer support settings. However, I think it's time for us to begin to shift into closing today. So I would just like to thank all of our panelists for joining us today and expressing their views on the use of AI in peer support. And I'd like to thank every participant that added to the dialogue, whether it be through verbal means or through the chat. And then finally, I'd love to invite anyone who is currently working in peer support to join us for Intervision. Peer Power has rolled out Intervision sessions, which is a community of practice for peer supporters. Through a couple of conferences that we held last year in Illinois, we heard a resounding plea for a community of practice. And so after giving it much thought, we developed Intervision, and it is open and free to anyone currently working in a peer role. If you are not working in a peer role, we still love you, but you cannot join. It is a peer community of practice. And so we do offer 2 sessions each month, the first Tuesday of the month at 9 a.m. and the third Thursday of the month at 7 p.m., which happens to be tonight. And so if you're looking for a place where you can talk about the challenges that you experience in your peer support role and work together to develop solutions and strategies, Intervision is or could be that place for you. We invite you to join. And Tony, you are going to drop the links to the Tuesday and Thursday registrations in the chat for us, would you please?
I will do that.
And so people have that. Thank you. You can also scan that QR code that's on the screen if you like, and that'll take you to our Intervision page where you can also find those links. We have applied for CEUs through the Illinois Certification Board for this webinar. We have not received our award yet. We have not received approval of our application, but when we do receive that approval, we will email CEU certificates to everyone who joined us today. Again, thank you. We appreciate you being here, and your voice matters to us. And yeah, that's all. Thank you.